My own son, my flesh and blood, left me to rot in the black heart of the Appalachian forest. He called it a birthday gift, a sweet lie that lured me to this God-forsaken wilderness, with nothing but his rusted gray Tiger truck mocking me in the dark. No phone, no food, no way out, just the searing stab of his betrayal cutting deeper than I thought pain could go. How could the boy I raised, the child I gave my life for, abandon me to die? Stay with me, because this isn't where my story ends, it's where my fight begins. The darkness of the Appalachian forest pressed against me. Eleanor Brooks, a 70-year-old widow, as I stood by that cursed gray Tiger truck, its engine cold as my son's heart. My hands shook, not just from the chilly 40-degree night, but from the gut-punch realization that Nathan, my only child, had planned this. He'd called it a birthday gift, a camping trip to relive the days when my late husband, Tom, and I pitched tents under these same stars. "Mom, let's make memories," he'd said, his voice warm like the Virginia summers we used to share. I believed him. God help me, I did. Back in our cozy Fairfax home, I'd packed a wicker picnic basket with homemade apple pie and Nathan's favorite peanut butter sandwiches, humming Amazing Grace like I did when he was little. He'd insisted on handling everything: my phone, the map, even the car keys. "Relax, Mom, I've got this," he told me, his hazel eyes dodging mine as he stuffed my backpack into the truck. I ignored the unease, the way he snapped when I asked about our campsite. "Just trust me," he barked. And I did, because that's what mothers do. I'd raised him alone after Tom passed, selling our old farmhouse to clear Nathan's gambling debts, working 12-hour shifts at Food Lion to keep him fed. This trip felt like his thank you, a rare moment of love. But now, stranded 50 miles from nowhere, I saw the truth. Nathan hadn't brought me here to bond. He'd driven off, leaving me with no phone, no map, just that rusted truck mocking me in the moonlight. My chest tightened as I whispered, "How could you, Nathan?" The forest swallowed my words, but not my rage. I wasn't just lost, I was betrayed. And as I sank onto the cold ground, clutching my scarf, I knew this wasn't just about a camping trip. It was about everything I'd given him, everything he'd taken. My story wasn't over, though. It was time to remember who I was before I became Nathan's mother. The Appalachian night gripped me like a vice, the air plunging below 35 degrees as I pressed against the gray Tiger's rusted door, its chipped silver paint glinting like a knife in the moonlight. Shivering, I sank to the cold earth, my breath fogging in the dark, but my mind burned with memories, decades of pouring my soul into Nathan, my son, only to be left here, betrayed. The forest's eerie silence couldn't mute the echoes of all I'd given him, every sacrifice now a wound bleeding fresh. How had the boy I'd carried through life turned into the man who abandoned me in this wilderness? I saw us back in the summer of '98, Nathan just a kid, his grin wide as we fished at Lake Anna. "You're the coolest, Mom," he'd said, clutching the rod I'd bought by skipping dinners, my stomach growling so his could be full. After Tom's cancer stole him away, I worked 12-hour shifts at Food Lion, my feet throbbing on that icy linoleum, just to keep Nathan's world steady. When he was 16, he broke his arm in a bike crash. I sat by his hospital bed whispering, "You'll be fine, sweetheart," while signing away our old farmhouse to pay the bills. "I'll make it up to you," he swore, his voice cracking with guilt. I nodded, brushing off Margaret's warnings that he was trouble. I saw only his potential, not his flaws. By his 20 seconds, Nathan's promises crumbled. He'd call from Atlantic City, voice thick with desperation, begging for money to cover poker debts. "Just one more time, Mom," he'd plead, and I'd send $2,000, selling my mother's silver locket to do it. I told myself it was love, not weakness. For his high school graduation, I scraped together $5,000 for that beat-up pickup, the gray Tiger. He hugged me so hard I thought my heart would burst. "You're my rock," he said, revving the engine as I stood on our Fairfax porch, waving like a fool. I didn't see then that every dollar I gave was a brick in the trap he'd build around me. The signs were there, though, sharp as thorns. Nathan skipped Thanksgiving, claiming work at some shady consulting gig. When I asked about my grandkids, Lily and Max, he'd snap, "They're fine, quit fussing." Last winter, I spent weeks knitting them scarves, blue and gold like Tom's old fishing hat. Nathan tossed them in a closet, muttering, "They don't want that junk." I forced a smile, but it hurt, like a bruise I couldn't touch. Over coffee at our local diner, Margaret leaned in, her voice low. "He's been asking about your bank account, saying you're forgetting things, maybe need a home." I laughed it off, sipping my decaf. "He's just concerned," I said, burying the doubt clawing at my gut. A month ago, Nathan showed up at my door, all charm, holding a bottle of Virginia Merlot. "Happy early birthday," he said, his smile too bright, like a used car salesman's. "Let's go camping in the Appalachians, like you and Dad did." My heart soared. I'd told him stories of those trips. Tom and me hiking 10 miles through misty trails, laughing by campfires. I thought Nathan remembered, that he cared. So I packed my flannel blanket, my old thermos, my dreams, blind to the lie he was spinning. I should have seen it his quick glances away, his sharp tone when I asked about the route. "Just trust me," he said, and I did, because that's what I'd always done. Now, in this frozen forest, those memories turned to ash. Every late shift, every sold heirloom, every tear I'd dried for him felt like a betrayal of myself. My fists clenched, nails biting into my skin as I hissed, "You played me, Nathan." The gray tiger's headlights flickered, as if mocking my pain. But I wasn't shattered. The woman who'd survived Tom's death, who'd carried Nathan through every storm, was still here. And she was done being a fool. The forest might be cold, but my anger was a spark, ready to ignite. The Appalachian forest closed in around me, its shadows clawing at my heart as I slumped against the gray tiger's cold, rusted frame, the air biting at 30 degrees. My breath hitched, not just from the chill but from a pain so raw it felt like my soul was splitting. Nathan, my son, hadn't just left me in this wilderness 50 miles from civilization. He'd planned it, every step, to erase me. The realization hit like a freight train, but it was what I found inside that cursed truck that drove the knife deeper, twisting until I thought I'd break. I fumbled with the gray tiger's glove box, my fingers numb, searching for anything, a flashlight, a map, a shred of hope. Instead, I found a folded piece of paper, Nathan's handwriting scrawled across it like a confession from hell. "Mom, you're better off out here. I'll handle the house. Trust me." Trust him? The words burned my eyes, each letter a betrayal carved into my core. I clutched the note, my hands shaking as tears blurred the ink. He didn't just abandon me. He wanted me gone, lost in these mountains, while he stole the life I'd built. My home, my savings, everything I'd bled for his to take, like I was already dead. I sank to my knees, the forest floor damp through my jeans, and let out a choked sob. "How could you, Nathan?" I whispered, my voice swallowed by the pines. I saw his face, that boy I'd called my golden child, the one I'd defended when Margaret said he was selfish, when my brother-in-law Frank called him a leech. I'd sold my mother's silver locket, worked nights until my back screamed, all to keep him afloat. And this was my reward? A note, cold as the gravel under me, telling me I was disposable. I pressed the paper to my chest, as if I could crush the truth out of it. I'd given him everything: my youth, my dreams, my love, and he'd traded it for a plot to bury me in these woods. Then, a worse truth clawed its way up. I rummaged through my backpack, finding my old checkbook tucked in a side pocket, one I'd brought to pay for campsite fees. The last page showed a withdrawal $10,000, dated 3 days ago, from our joint account. My heart stopped. That was my emergency fund, the one I'd saved for Lily and Max's college, the one Nathan swore he'd never touch. "It's safe, Mom," he'd said last month, his smile too smooth over dinner at Applebee's. I'd nodded, ignoring the pit in my stomach. Now I knew. He'd drained it, probably to pay off more debts or, worse, to fund his plan to sell my Fairfax home. I dug deeper, finding a crumpled business card from a real estate agent, scribbled with, Brooks Property, quick sale, $400,000. My home. My sanctuary. The place where I'd rocked Nathan to sleep, where Tom and I danced to Sinatra in the kitchen. He was selling it out from under me. I screamed into the dark, a raw, guttural sound that echoed off the ridges. "You thief!" I yelled, my voice breaking. "You stole my life!" The forest didn't answer, but the pain did, flooding every inch of me until I thought I'd drown in it. I saw every moment I'd excused him, his missed calls, his lies about work, the way he'd rolled his eyes when I asked about my grandkids. I'd told Margaret, "He's just busy," when she warned me he'd been meeting with lawyers, whispering about my forgetfulness. I'd laughed it off, but now it was clear. He was building a case to declare me unfit, to lock me away in some nursing home while he cashed out my life's work. I was his mother, his rock, and he'd turned me into a pawn. My sobs quieted, but the pain didn't. I clutched that note, my fingers curling until the paper tore. I thought of Lily and Max, their tiny hands clutching my knitted scarves, unaware their father was a monster. I thought of Tom, how he'd believed in Nathan until his last breath. "He'll grow up right," Tom had said, his voice weak from the hospital bed. I'd believed it too. Now, I was alone, 50 miles from help, with no phone, no money, and a son who wanted me erased. The gray tiger's headlights dimmed, like it knew my despair. But in that darkness, something stirred a spark of the woman who'd survived Tom's death, who'd carried a family on her shoulders. I wasn't done. Nathan thought he'd broken me, but he'd only lit a fire. I stood, wiping my tears, and whispered, "You'll regret this." The forest was my prison, but it wouldn't be my grave. The Appalachian darkness pressed against me like a living thing, the air a bitter 25 degrees as I knelt beside the gray tiger, its headlights fading like my trust in Nathan. My tears had dried, but the pain of his betrayal, his note, his theft of my savings burned hotter than ever. I wasn't just stranded 50 miles from help. I was fighting for my life, my home, everything I'd built. The forest wasn't my enemy. My son was. But I wasn't the frail woman he thought he'd left behind. The woman who'd survived Tom's death, who'd carried Nathan through every failure, was waking up. I wasn't prey, I was a survivor, and I'd claw my way out of this trap. I forced myself to stand, my knees creaking, and rummaged through the gray tiger's bed. My fingers found a rusty toolbox, a half-empty water bottle, and a tattered tarp. Memories of Tom flooded back our camping trips, his calm voice teaching me to build a fire with nothing but flint and kindling. "You're tougher than you know, Ellie," he'd said, his grin bright under the Virginia stars. I shook off the ache and got to work, dragging branches to form a lean-to against the truck. The tarp, though torn, shielded me from the wind's bite. I broke twigs, my hands raw, and used a spark from the toolbox's flint to coax a small fire to life. The flames flickered, weak but defiant, like the spark growing in my chest. I wasn't going to die here. By dawn, the forest lightened, revealing a faint trail winding through the pines. I sipped the water bottle's last drops, my throat parched, and started walking, my boots crunching on frost-covered leaves. Every step was a rebellion against Nathan's plan. He thought I'd crumble, lost in these mountains, but I'd hiked these trails with Tom, covering 10 miles in a day, laughing through rainstorms. I could do this. After an hour, maybe 2, my legs burned, and my stomach growled, but I spotted a figure, a hiker, her backpack bouncing as she hummed a tune. "Excuse me," I called, my voice hoarse but steady. She turned, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a braid. "I'm Clara," she said, offering a granola bar. "You okay out here?" I shook my head, the weight of Nathan's note heavy in my pocket. "I'm stranded. My son. He left me here. Can I borrow your phone? Clara's face tightened, but she handed it over. Take as long as you need, she said, her voice soft but firm, like she'd seen pain before. I dialed Margaret, my oldest friend, the number etched in my mind from years of late-night talks. Eleanor? She answered, her voice sharp with worry. Where are you? Appalachians alone, I said, my words trembling. Nathan ditched me, Margaret. He's after my house. She gasped. That snake? I'm calling Robert Hayes, your lawyer, right now. Stay put. Clara let me keep her phone, and we found a clearing with a signal. I logged into my Gmail, my fingers shaking as I typed. What I found stopped my heart. Emails from Nathan to my niece, Susan, and Frank, my brother-in-law, dated days before this trip. Mom's slipping, he wrote. She got lost in the grocery store last week. I'm worried she needs care. Lies. I'd never wandered anywhere but the aisles of Food Lion, picking out Nathan's favorite coffee. Another email, to a lawyer, mentioned guardianship proceedings and asset management. He wasn't just stealing my money, he was building a case to declare me incompetent, to lock me away in some facility while he sold my Fairfax home, the one Tom and I painted blue, the one where I'd raised him. My blood boiled. You coward, I hissed, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles whitened. Clara glanced over, concern creasing her brow. He's trying to take everything, I told her, my voice low, venomous. My home, my savings, my name. She nodded. No judgment, just understanding. You're not alone now, she said, squeezing my hand. I called Robert Hayes next, his gruff voice a lifeline. Eleanor, are you safe? He asked. For now, I said, my resolve hardening. Nathan's trying to declare me unfit. Stop him. Robert didn't hesitate. I'm filing an emergency injunction to block any guardianship. Get to a road, and I'll arrange a pickup. I handed the phone back to Clara, my hands steadier now. The forest loomed, but I wasn't its prisoner. Nathan thought he'd buried me, but he'd forgotten who I was. I'd survived worse than this Tom's cancer. Nathan's debts, years of scraping by. As Clara led me toward a ranger station 3 miles away, my rage sharpened into purpose. I wasn't just surviving, I was fighting back. Nathan would face me, and he'd learn what happens when you cross the woman who gave you everything. The air in Fairfax felt heavier than the Appalachian frost, thick with the weight of what I was about to do. I'd survived 50 miles of wilderness, carried by Clara's kindness and my own stubborn fire. But now I stood outside a glass-fronted real estate office on Main Street, my heart pounding like a war drum. Nathan, my son, was inside, selling my home, the blue-shuttered house where I'd raised him, where Tom's laughter still echoed in the creak of the floorboards. Margaret had called me an hour ago, her voice trembling with fury. He's at Pinnacle Realty, Eleanor, signing papers to sell your house. Robert's on his way, but you need to get there now. I gripped the crumpled note from the gray tiger, his betrayal in black ink, and the business card I'd found, proof of his scheme. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about justice. I pushed through the office door, the bell jingling like a warning shot. The fluorescent lights buzzed, casting harsh shadows on Nathan's face as he sat at a polished desk, pen in hand, charming a real estate agent with that same slick smile he'd used on me. A buyer, a middle-aged man in a cheap suit, nodded along, oblivious to the thief in their midst. My boots hit the floor hard, each step a thunderclap. Nathan's eyes flicked up, and for a split second, I saw fear raw, naked fear before he masked it with a grin. "Mom?" he said, his voice oily. "What are you doing here? I thought you were camping." I didn't flinch. My hands shook, not from weakness but from a rage so fierce it could have burned the room down. "Camping?" I spat, my voice low, venomous. "You left me in the Appalachians, Nathan, with nothing but your lies and that rusted gray tiger. But I'm here now, and you're done." The agent, a woman with a tight bun and nervous eyes, froze. The buyer leaned back, sensing the storm. I slammed the note on the desk, its edges frayed but the words clear. "Read it," I said, my gaze locked on Nathan. "Tell them how you wrote. Mom, you're better off out here. I'll handle the house. Tell them how you planned to sell my home while I was lost, 50 miles from nowhere." Nathan's smile faltered, his fingers twitching around the pen. "That's not what it looks like," he stammered, glancing at the agent. "She's confused, been forgetting things. I was protecting her." The lie stung, sharper than the forest's cold. I pulled out the real estate card, the one with Brooks Property, quick sale, $400,000, scrawled in his handwriting, and tossed it beside the note. "Protecting me?" I said, my voice rising, cutting through the room like a blade. "By stealing $10,000 from my account? By emailing Susan and Frank saying I'm unfit so you could lock me in a nursing home and take everything?" The buyer's jaw dropped, and the agent's face paled as she shuffled papers, avoiding my eyes. I wasn't done. I pulled Clara's borrowed phone from my pocket, the screen glowing with Nathan's emails, forwarded by Margaret. "Here's your protection," I said, holding it up. "Emails to a lawyer about guardianship, dated before you left me in that forest. You didn't just abandon me, Nathan. You tried to erase me." The room went silent, the air thick with his guilt. The buyer stood muttering, "I'm out," and grabbed his briefcase. The agent stammered, "Mr. Brooks, is this true?" Nathan's face crumpled, his charm dissolving. "Mom, I didn't mean—" He started, but I cut him off, my voice steady as steel. "You meant every word. And these?" I tossed the gray tiger's keys onto the desk, where they landed with a clatter. "Take your truck. It's all you'll get from me." The agent pushed the contract away, her hands trembling. "We can't proceed," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Nathan's eyes darted between us, wild, like a trapped animal. "You're ruining me, Mom!" he shouted, slamming his fist on the desk. I didn't blink. "You ruined yourself," I said, my voice cold, final. Margaret burst through the door then, Robert Hayes at her side, his briefcase stuffed with legal papers. "Eleanor, we've got the injunction ready," Robert said, his tone all business. "He can't touch your assets." I nodded, my chest tight but my spine straight. Nathan thought he'd buried me in that forest, but I'd come back. Not just alive, but armed with the truth. As Nathan scrambled to gather his papers, his face red with shame, I turned to leave, the weight of his betrayal still heavy but no longer crushing. This wasn't the end. My home, my life, was waiting, and I'd face Nathan one last time to take it all back. The real fight was coming, and I was ready. The Fairfax sun hung low, casting long shadows across my blue-shuttered house as I stepped out of Robert Hayes' sedan, my heart a furnace of resolve and rage. The 20-mile drive from the real estate office, where I'd left Nathan scrambling under the weight of his exposed lies, had only sharpened my purpose. My home, the one I'd built with Tom, where I'd rocked Nathan to sleep, where every scuff on the hardwood held a memory, was under siege. Margaret had called as we drove, her voice tight with alarm. "He's at your place, Eleanor, packing your things into boxes like he owns it." I gripped the manila folder Robert handed me, stuffed with legal papers to block Nathan's schemes, and felt the fire in my chest flare hotter. This wasn't just about a house. It was about my life, and I was taking it back. 2 police officers, badges glinting in the dusk, flanked us as we approached my driveway. The sight of Nathan's silver sedan, parked crookedly as if he already ruled the place, twisted my stomach. My hydrangeas, once vibrant, wilted under his neglect, and the porch light Tom's warm yellow bulb had been swapped for a stark LED that screamed his arrogance. I clutched the folder, its edges digging into my palm, and remembered the Appalachian forest, where I'd survived Nathan's betrayal. He thought he'd broken me there, 50 miles from help. But I was here now, and he'd faced the woman he'd underestimated. The officers knocked, a sharp rap that echoed like a gavel. No answer. Robert nodded, and they knocked again, louder. The door creaked open, and Nathan appeared, shirt untucked, hair wild, a cardboard box in his arms stuffed with my life, Tom's old fishing hat, my grandmother's quilt, Lily and Max's baby photos. His eyes widened, panic flickering as he saw me. Then the officers. "Mom?" he stammered, his voice cracking. "What's going on?" I stepped forward, my boots firm on the porch I'd swept 1,000 times. "This is my home, Nathan," I said, my voice low, steel, hard. "You're the one leaving." He dropped the box, its contents spilling across the floor, and tried to laugh, that same oily charm from the real estate office. "You're overreacting," he said, glancing at the officers. "I was just organizing, keeping things safe." "Safe?" The word was a slap. I held up the folder, its weight my shield. "Safe? Like leaving me in the Appalachians with no phone, no map?" I said, my voice rising, cutting through his lies. "Safe? Like stealing $10,000 from my account? Like emailing lawyers to call me unfit so you could sell this house?" The officers shifted, their hands on their belts, and Nathan's face paled, his charm crumbling like dry leaves. Robert stepped forward, his voice calm but unyielding. "Mr. Brooks, I'm Robert Hayes, Eleanor's attorney. This is a temporary restraining order. You're barred from this property, her accounts, and any contact within 100 feet of her." He handed Nathan the papers, their crisp edges ablaze to his schemes. Nathan's hands shook as he took them, his eyes darting to me, pleading. "Mom, I didn't mean it like that," he said, his voice breaking. "I was trying to help you, to protect you." I didn't flinch. "Protect me?" I said, my words sharp as broken glass. "You left me to die in that forest, Nathan. You packed my life into boxes while I was fighting to get home. You're no son of mine anymore." The officers moved closer, one nodding to Nathan. "Time to go, sir," he said, his tone final. Nathan's shoulders slumped, but he tried one last plea, his voice a whine. "You're ruining everything, Mom. I was building a future for us." I stepped into my doorway, my hand on the knob, my knob. "You built nothing," I said, my voice steady, cold. "I built this home. I raised you. And I'm done letting you take what's mine." The door shut behind him, the lock clicking with a sound sweeter than any hymn. The officers escorted him to his car, his protests fading into the evening air. I stood in my living room, the familiar scent of lemon polish and old books wrapping around me like an embrace. My heart ached not for Nathan, but for the boy I'd once believed in. That boy was gone, replaced by a man who'd tried to erase me. But I was still here, unbroken, unbowed. The fight wasn't over. Nathan's schemes might linger, but I had my home, my truth, and the strength to rebuild. I turned to Robert, who nodded, his eyes warm with respect. "You've got this, Eleanor," he said. I smiled, faint but fierce. It was time to make this house mine again. The Fairfax dawn broke soft and golden, bathing my blue-shuttered house in a warmth I hadn't felt since before Nathan's betrayal. Standing in my living room, the echo of the slammed door still ringing, Nathan gone, escorted by police with Robert's restraining order in hand, I felt the weight of my victory. My home, the one I'd built with Tom, where every nick in the oak table told a story, was mine again. But the air still carried the sting of Nathan's violation, his cardboard boxes strewn across the floor, holding pieces of my life he'd tried to erase. My heart, though bruised, beat steady with a new truth. I wasn't just a mother who'd lost her son. I was a woman who'd reclaimed her soul. I started with the porch light, unscrewing that harsh LED Nathan had installed, its cold glare an insult to Tom's memory. I replaced it with a warm yellow bulb, the kind we'd chosen together 30 years ago, its glow spilling across the hydrangeas like a promise. The flowers, wilted from neglect, begged for care. So I knelt in the 60-degree morning, my hands deep in Virginia soil, coaxing them back to life with water and mulch. Each blossom felt like a piece of me reviving, defiant against the chaos Nathan had sown. I dragged his boxes to the curb, Tom's fishing hat and my grandmother's quilt now back on the mantel where they belonged. The scent of lemon polish filled the air as I scrubbed the floors, erasing Nathan's footprints, reclaiming every inch of my sanctuary. Margaret stopped by that afternoon, her arms full of groceries from Food Lion fresh apples, a loaf of sourdough, and a pint of my favorite vanilla ice cream. "You're a warrior, Eleanor," she said, setting the bags on the counter, her eyes bright with pride. I managed a smile, my first real one in days. "I'm just me," I said, my voice soft but steady. "But me's enough." She hugged me, fierce and quick, like she knew words couldn't carry what we both felt. Over coffee at my kitchen table, the one where I'd once helped Nathan with his homework, she updated me on Robert's work. "He's frozen Nathan's access to your accounts," she said, stirring sugar into her mug. "The judge threw out his guardianship petition. Those fake emails about you being unfit didn't stand a chance." I nodded, sipping my coffee, the warmth grounding me. Nathan's lies had unraveled, just like his plans. I walked to the porch swing later, the one Tom built in '89, its creak a familiar song as I settled in with a mug of chamomile tea. The Fairfax breeze carried the scent of blooming roses, ones I'd planted after Tom's death to keep his memory alive. I thought of Lily and Max, my grandkids, their faces bright in my mind. I'd started a letter to them, tucked in my desk, explaining Nathan's actions without bitterness. "Your dad made mistakes," I wrote, "but my door's always open for you." I didn't know if they'd read it, or if Nathan's wife, Karen, would let them, but I needed them to know I hadn't abandoned them. The pain of losing Nathan lingered, not as a son but as a dream I'd clung to too long. I'd thought love meant giving everything, my savings, my home, my trust. Now I knew it meant standing tall, refusing to let anyone steal my worth. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of amber and pink, I reflected on the Appalachian forest, where Nathan's betrayal had nearly broken me. That night, 50 miles from help, I'd been a spark in the dark, fueled by rage and resilience. I'd survived not because of Nathan, but despite him. The gray tiger, his rusted legacy, was gone, towed away with his schemes. My home was no longer a battleground but a haven, its walls holding my strength, not his greed. I whispered to the empty swing. "You were wrong, Nathan. I'm not disposable." The words felt like a vow etched into my soul. Margaret's voice broke my thoughts, calling from the kitchen. "Eleanor, you want pie with that tea?" I laughed, a sound I hadn't heard in weeks. "Only if it's apple," I called back, standing to join her. The fight had changed me, stripped away the mother who'd bent too far for love. But it had given me something stronger, a woman who knew her value. Nathan might try again, but he'd find a locked door and a heart that no longer yielded. As I stepped inside, the glow of my home wrapped around me. I knew the final step was to share this truth, to let others know they could rise too. The Fairfax evening settled around me, the soft hum of crickets blending with the creak of my porch swing, Tom's old handiwork still holding strong. I sat there, a mug of chamomile tea warming my hands, the glow of my yellow porch light casting a gentle halo over the roses I'd brought back to life. The pain of Nathan's betrayal lingered, a dull ache in my chest, but it no longer owned me. I'd walked through the fire of his lies, abandoned in the Appalachian wilderness, 50 miles from hope, with only the gray tiger's mocking rust to keep me company. I'd fought my way back, not just to my blue-shuttered Fairfax home, but to myself. And now, as the stars blinked above, I knew my story wasn't just mine. It was for anyone who'd ever been cast aside, told their worth was gone. I learned something in that forest, something harder than survival. Love doesn't mean surrendering your power. For years, I gave Nathan everything, my savings, my dreams, my trust, thinking that's what mothers do. But love without respect is a trap, a cage dressed in familiar skin. I broke free by setting boundaries, by trusting my instincts, by refusing to let his lies define me. You can too. Your voice, your strength, your story, they matter. Don't let anyone, not even those closest to you, steal them away. Stand tall like I did, and claim the life you've built. I'm sharing this not for pity, but for purpose. If my journey from that freezing forest to this reclaimed home touches you, please share your story in the comments below. Tell me about the times you fought back, the moments you refused to break. Your words might light a spark for someone else, just like Clara's kindness and Margaret's loyalty did for me. If this story moves you, hit that like button. It's a small way to say you see me, that you hear this truth. And if you want to join others who've risen from betrayal, subscribe to the Unwanted Revenge. It's a place for stories like ours, where we turn pain into power, together. As I sipped my tea, the Fairfax night wrapped around me, calm and whole. Nathan might try again, spinning new lies from some cheap motel, but he'll find a woman who no longer bends. My home, my heart, my story, they're mine. And yours are too. Let's keep telling them, keep fighting for them, until the world knows we're unbreakable.